What's going on, everybody? It's Joe from the Acceptable Casualties, here to, I guess, let you guys do a little bit of a ride along with some of the set pieces that we're going to be building for Sons of Mars, for the rule book, for some of the pictures, and some of the Gladiator pits that we're going to try to use for our sets. So this is kind of just the basic setup of materials that I have right now, and I'm going to take you guys through phase by phase as far as how I'm building it. This is by no means a professional level build or anything like that. It's just kind of just something to get up as like sets and stuff like that, just to kind of get some decent background photos, and also just, you know, for us to play as well. So this is going to be the build for our I guess one of our death pit arenas, our pit arenas, kind of like off the beaten path, not the big event stuff that you would see in like the Roman Colosseums or anything. This is more like the smaller gambling pits that you find down in the deep dark alleys of Rome or anywhere else inside the Empire. So for this, I ended up getting, for the base, you can use MDF. I had some spare hardboard laying around, so I'm using a hardboard base. For the walls that you guys see up here, this is going to be just regular foam core or foam board. I got this over, any hobby store that you guys can pick up. They're two pieces. They're jointed together at the back. I shave about 1/8 of an inch off here and just leave the paper backing on there. And then I kind of butt the joints together and use some wood glue to hold it together. And then that'll also be put on the sides of this board as well to kind of stick it all together. I'm going to just use a hobby knife, obviously, for the cutting and stuff like that. Desert sand, the Vallejo texture paint is what I'm going to end up using along the bottom over here, just to give a sand texture down there. I'll be using these dowels right here. I don't know if you guys can see the circle marks that I have there, but these dowels will be placed at every one of these circle marks going around, and then I'll be putting this chain up around each one to kind of connect it, so this whole section will be chained in. The outside part around here will be kind of like standing room for crowds and models kind of looking in on the fight over there. Those will be, obviously, I'll be using wood glue to use those. For the back wall, I ended up picking up some limestone textured spray paint. I'm going to spray that on the back wall there. I'm going to see how that looks initially. Like I said, it is textured. I mean, obviously you guys can't see it, but you can hear it. It's a sandstone or like limestone textured spray paint. So I'm going to spray that all on those back walls right there. Might go back over and do like a light dry brushing if it needs to pop out a little bit more. But if not, I'm just going to keep it as is and go with that. So this, like I said, it's going to be that limestone along the back wall, sand basing. Going to have those little pillars, like little wooden dowel rod pillars, over here, strung with chain going around. And I also picked up some Blood for the Blood God for the Citadel technical paint from Games Workshop. I got some of that as well, just because I want to do some blood splatter. This is supposed to be kind of a little more gruesome and nasty affair, so I'm going to kind of paint the picture and the setting and really add that to some of the walls, some of the sand, and really bring out the brutality of some of these fights and these fighting pits. So this is, just the material section. Be back in a second after phase one is kind of put together, which is most likely just going to be the back wall sprayed and kind of stuck to the baseboard right here. And maybe I'll end up doing some desert sand texture. And we're just gonna, this is going to be pretty laid back. It's going to be like an actual step-by-step going through. Just kind of let you guys see how the build goes all the way till the end, until probably like touch-up paint and stuff like that. So be back in a flash. All right, everybody, we're back with, I guess this will be phase one of the build. So for this, I ended up taking out that whiteboard. I ended up going outside and spraying. I mean, we're at like, I think 5 or 10 degrees Fahrenheit right now. So the spray paint is running and not sticking that well, but I still kind of got the effect that I want. I don't know if you guys are able to see it, but the texture paint did stick. It did decent coverage too on the white walls. So it's getting the desired effect that I wanted. If you guys can see down here, it kind of pooled. I had to do like 2 pretty decent coats on there to get anything. This is not the sand basing. This is just the textured runoff from that spray paint because it was so cold out. I had to run it back inside and do that. So I'm still going to put a coat down on top of that with the desert sand. You can also see I put the dowel rods in. There's going to be chain slung in between each one of these, going all the way around to kind of mark the fighting area in the middle. The outside is going to be left open for standing room for spectators. This is going to be phase one. Next phase, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to drop that desert sand in here and put all the texture down on the bottom and kind of let that dry. And then once that dries over, I'm probably going to go over with a wash and try to darken up that sand a little bit. If you guys can see too, along the bottom lines over here of the wall, I'm going to end up pushing up a little bit of that sand texture on there to kind of use it as an adhesive to help support the wall as well, because that stuff does it will bind things a little bit. Not as good as glue, obviously, but it'll help pull that wall together. Same thing in that back corner over there. I'm going to kind of cake it into there and use it as a binder to kind of hold all this structure together. And like this is a thing too, and this is kind of, from you guys don't know, I worked in film and television for a couple years, and out in Los Angeles, doing a lot of lighting and rigging and some set building and stuff like that. And one of the things that we always did is you just get it looking good for camera. So for what we're doing right now here, these sets that we're building, obviously we're going to use them for gameplay, but they're more set up to just kind of cover basic camera angles for pictures and some of the stuff that we're going to end up putting in the rulebook for Sons of Mars. But like I said, if this was just a set that you're going to have playing for home, this would work just fine. For cameras, this works good. I mean, because you're going to be setting your camera up, just trying to get certain angles going around here, kind of just using this as a set. If this is going to be like a display piece or something you're going to take on the road, obviously there would be a lot more detail as far as the construction side goes, and just making it a lot cleaner and a lot more visually appealing for people. But like I said, this is just being used for pictures right now, so it almost look at it as almost like kind of like a diorama setup where we're just going to be using it to play to the camera more than anything. So I'll be back in a second. Like I said, we're going to do phase number 2 of the build. It's going to just be mostly desert sand. I'll probably end up dropping a wash in there as well, and then doing the wash on some of the little dowel rods down here to kind of get them to darken up a little bit. I'll probably leave the walls the same. I'm not going to really do anything with the walls right now. I'm going to see how that kind of plays off the sand, and if I get the effect that I like, I'll leave it, and if not, I might go over it, and I don't know, I'll come up with something, maybe either wash it if I need to darken it up, or maybe hit it with like a light dry brush if I want to kind of make some of the texture in there pop a little bit more. But I won't know until I end up putting the sand on there. So I'll be back in a second, and I'll show you guys what phase 2 looks like. All right, everybody, we're back for phase 2. So in this phase, it was a whole lot of sand. So I ended up taking the desert sand that Vallejo makes, the texture down here. I ended up applying it and tried to do my best to kind of stipple it as well, to kind of give it that sand look around these pylons. With the pylons, the wooden dowel rods, I tried to use the wood glue. Just like a little side note, I tried to use the wood glue to adhere to the hardboard I'm using as the basing material. Didn't really stick that good. I ended up using I got this Max Cure. It's like really thick, like model glue. I mean, it's awesome. That's the only thing that I use for my models. As far as it works great for metal to metal, metal to plastic. So I had to give it a shot on here, and this stuff it worked wonders on here. So if you guys can grab that Max Cure anywhere, it's worth it for like $5. I think that's better than model glue or super glue. But back to what I was talking about. All right, so I glued in the dowel rods. They're all kind of set in and ready to go. Took that desert sand, just started kind of lopping it down. I ended up using just a popsicle stick, a large popsicle stick, threw like a large wad down there, and then just kind of spread it out the best that I could. And then I have a whole bunch of these extra like little like blue files, just, you know, the random box of model nonsense that we all accumulate. So I just took one of these out, kind of spread it out into some of the smaller areas, into the corners, and then once I kind of got the spread, I went over it with I have like an old brush here, and I just kind of went in and just kind of stippled everything and kind of gave it that walked on sand look. And I think it's going to come out pretty good once it dries and settles in. And along that back crease that I had there along the walls, you guys can see this filled it in. This will dry into the gap hopefully, and if not, then I'll just add another small layer of texture into there. In that back corner, I kind of just did like a pile of sand accumulating into a corner. So like the pile kind of built up maybe like a foot high into that back wall up there, and then kind of tapered down off both edges. And, just a way to kind of hide that gap that was in that back crease over there. And then here's like the texture going all the way across down there. So I did it all the way down to the bottom, just kind of give a little bit more room for camera play when we end up shooting some of the pictures. And I might do a couple battle reports in here. So plans for the next phase right now. Going into phase 3 of the build, I think I'm going to leave the walls as is for now. I'm not going to mess with them too much, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to come through and I'm going to wash all of these dowel rods right here. And I'm going to get those hopefully looking a little bit darker, and just just kind of break them up because I just don't like the way that they look right now. So I'm gonna hit them with a wash, see how that looks. After I end up doing that, I think I'm just going to leave the sand as is. I talked earlier about maybe going through and actually dropping some washes on there, see if I can break it up a little bit. But I kind of like it slightly darker than the walls, so it's not like one sandy color going all the way through. So I think I'm just going to leave it as is. So I'm going to let the sand dry. I'm going to hit these with some washes right now. After that, I'm going to bring out the chain, and here's the chain that I have. So it kind of has like a brass look to it, and the rings on it are pretty decent size. So I'm going to string it along all those dowel rods going all the way in to make like a kind of like a fenced in area right there. And then after that's said and done, I'm going to take out some blood for the blood cloud, and I'm going to try to do maybe like some smear marks on the wall where some guys have died. Maybe do like try to see if I can get like small like handprint smear like running down the wall there, some puddles over here, maybe do up some of these posts and maybe a little bit of blood on that chain as well, just to kind of get that gruesome effect of what's happening here. And then after all that's said and done, I'm not going to say it's done because I'm going to probably come back and add some detail pieces, but as far as the video goes, the basics for setting up the fighting pit and doing this project, I'm going to call it at the end of that for the video. And then as maybe I add some details to the walls and some other like little things around here like torches or anything like that, I'll put pictures up on Facebook if you guys want to follow along and just see how the build goes until I actually really do call it quits. So I'll be back in a second, and then we'll go over the next phase of the build. Okay, so we're back here with phase 3, the final phase of the build, and we'll do the conclusion, I guess, right now as well. So for this, I ended up going through, for all the dowel rods, I added the Army Painter Strong Tone, which is this stuff right here. I went through and I tried soft tone on them, but it was too soft, and I kind of wanted these, not to pop, but to be a little bit different, a little bit darker, and kind of stand out a little bit more when they're on top of the sand. You got that limestone wall in the back. I think the darker pillars look better than when I did a light wash on them. After that, I added the chains going across. To apply the chains, since they don't really stick to the dowel rods very well, I put a toothpick inside the chain holes and kind of poked them into the top of the dowel rods with through the loops of the chains, and then I ended up using that super glue that I have, or the hobby glue, and kind of held those in place. Going all the way down the line until it dried, then pulled it out. I'm going to go back over it, and I might add another like piece of chain kind of to hook over the top. Like I might cut one of the little rings out and then place it over the top, like where the chain meets the dowel rod right there, so it looks like it's actually like mounted into it. So that's like another like little side detail that I'm going to do. Probably in the near future, just to kind of get it to look good and get it all come together. The other stuff that I did is, you guys can see there's like a blood splatter I put into this one. Like I said, this is a more of a death pit, not your traditional arena, so it's going to be a little bit messier, a little bit grittier. And I was just playing with that. I got blood for the blood god. Never used it before. Picked it up here. I do like it though after messing around with it. I'll get better with it, I guess, the more I use it or whenever I have the opportunity to. Like in the back, I don't know if you can really tell. When you apply it, it does a really good job of pooling up, and if you add layers to it, it does feel like it's it's like a deeper, darker red, and it still has like that same blood effect, and it dries in like almost like a wet. Has like a wet look, like a gloss look to it, and like I said, it comes out really good if you're into doing blood effects for I guess like any kind of basing that you would do, or you want to put it on swords or whatever for your models. It's a pretty cool technical paint. So yeah, that's what I ended up doing for the last phase. So it was the dowel rods, the chains, and the blood effects. And my plan is to go back probably like in the next couple weeks. I'm going to add some torches to go along the walls. I'm probably going to try to dirty up the walls a little bit, maybe some washes, and try to get like that dingier, like stained look in there. Then I'm going to get some crowd, just like some Roman citizens, paint them up so we can get a little bit of depth. As you're looking into the arena, you can kind of get some people like standing all around here, kind of sitting in there watching, betting on the fights. Just try to set the stage a little bit more when we're doing this. But yeah, like I said, this is kind of just like the basic build. I just wanted to show you guys like how easy it was to throw this together. I think as far as work goes, might have been 2 hours of actual like build time between, you know, just cutting this out, assembling the back walls, and then mounting it to that hardboard base. And like I said, I just did hardboard because I didn't have MDF here. I had a sheet of hardboard, so I figured I'd just put it to use. And then like the most time consuming thing was throwing the sand down, just because it takes forever to spread it out and stipple it out on such a large surface. I've only done it for bases, and doing it for this wasn't like super difficult, but you definitely had to spend a little time kind of finding your groove and get used to how that sand kind of spread out and how it settled. It comes out like super thick. So like, you know, you can't really see here because I kind of went through and I stippled like, you know, every square inch of this thing. But yeah, like when you put it on wet, it goes on like super, super thick, and it's a labor to kind of get it to spread out evenly along the ground and into the corners and stuff like that. So that was the most time-consuming thing, putting it together. And as I said, if you're going to do those textures on like large areas like this, it's a job, and it definitely it takes a little while to kind of figure out how you're going to apply it, and then actually like, you know, do the stippling with like an old brush to kind of get like that actual sand look on top. Because if you just laid it down and didn't do anything to it, it would just look like you just, you know, put like spackling down, I guess. Like you have to put a little bit of time into actually developing the texture on the ground. But before I ramble too much going on into that. So yeah, so like this is like I said, this is the look of the build, like 2 hours. For materials, if you have it laying around, you probably could do it for around $10 if you have a lot of this stuff laying around. For me, I had to go out and I had to buy like the chain. I had to buy some of the foam board, some of like the wood glue, the blood for the blood god paint. I didn't spend like $20 on it, but I have enough of materials here to I would be able to build 3 of these. So I'll probably find some projects to use like the chain for and some other stuff and do it again. But next up, probably in the next couple weeks, I got to get with Scott. Scott's my buddy. He does like all sorts of homemade terrain. If you guys watch, there's a Fallschmager battle report from a couple months ago. I think it's like 3 months ago. If you guys look at that, he has like a fully customized homemade table, and like it's awesome. Like it's really, really nice. And he's talking about helping me do an amphitheater. So that's going to be like the main arena build that we're going to do for our photo sets. So when we get to that, if you guys are interested in it, if I got enough people like, you know, say that they want to see it, we can do a step-by-step build for that, and kind of, you know, take you guys from the material phase and going out and getting everything together to actually assembling it and finishing it and getting it ready for photography for the rule book, for some of the pictures that we're going to have in there for Sons of Mars. So yeah, like I said, hope this was interesting for you guys, just to kind of check it out and see. The cool thing is too, like, it's just not just for Gladiators. Like I know like Shadespire just came out for GW. So, you know, obviously you throw some skulls in here and do some other stuff for it, maybe change the dimensions a little bit. Like the same properties and stuff like that, the materials that you buy, you probably can roll over for that and do like some kind of theme that you wanted to for Shadespire for GW. Maybe just open it up a little bit more. But yeah, like this is just something like I just wanted to share with you guys. Like I said, if you like it, like, subscribe, leave some comments down below. Let me know what you guys thought, and I'll catch you later.